After that horror crash involving Ethiopian Airlines, Ethiopian Airlines has joined carriers, as we were discussing, in China and elsewhere in grounding those sorts of planes. Flight ET302 crashing yesterday, killing 157 people on board. It had taken off from Addis Ababa. It was en route to Nairobi, ploughing into a field in Ethiopia. Now, this was the second disaster involving that 737 MAX 8. It's relatively new, involving that aircraft over the past 5 months. In October last year, a Lion airplane crashed into the sea of the Indonesian capital of Jakarta, killing all on board. As I said, Comair, which operates BA flights from South Africa around this continent, says it has no plans to stop using the planes. Well, to discuss, we're joined by the editor and publisher of SA Flyer magazine on the safety of that plane, Guy Leach. Guy, thank you for joining us. Does this raise serious questions about this specific plane, the Boeing 737 MAX 8?
Yeah, hi Francis. Indeed, I think it definitely does. To have two accidents on a brand new type in the space of 4 or 5 months is pretty much unprecedented. And rising from the Lion Air crash off Jakarta, we do have a pretty good idea of what the problems were. They've only got preliminary findings from that accident report. And that goes to an additional safety system that Boeing ironically added, the upgrade previous year, 737-800. This is an auto-trim system which is designed to help the pilot of bad attitudes. The flight profile that we can see from the radar returns a very similar profile from the Lion Air crash. So I think that we have a lot in common, and indeed Boeing must be extremely worried about whether they've got an intrinsic problem with the aircraft.
Well, could this sink Boeing? Because this is so big. So we spoke to Comair. They did say that by last year, 300 of these planes were already in the air. 5,000 had been ordered. So it looks like a lot of airlines want this plane. But now Boeing must be in big trouble if there is any hint of a safety defect here.
I don't think it'll sink Boeing, but the Boeing, it's essentially a software glitch, or it's potentially a software glitch. It's a system that could relatively easily be rewritten. The trouble is Boeing doesn't want to do that because it requires what one would call essentially a recertification or a whole new testing of the aircraft. If it was certified with the system and you now take it out, then they've got to redo a whole parcel of that again. And the airlines won't like that. So they would really rather solve the problem rather than just remove it. Yes, the 737, what they call the narrow bodies, are hugely important to Boeing, as they are to Airbus. But it's a problem that can be solved over time. It's just the question is, what do we do about it now? Do airlines continue to fly? Some are doing so, or some are electing to rather be more prudent or cautious and grounding the fleet until they know more about what.
Well, 157 people died here, even more in that Lion Air crash. So Boeing must be considering class action lawsuits, things like that.
Oh, absolutely. And not just that, but the airlines could cancel many of the orders. That would be a serious setback to Boeing, which is just geared up to produce almost 60 of these aircraft every month. That's 2 a day. If they lose a whole lot of these orders to Airbus, it would be enormous. But I think that we've seen that the stock markets knocked Boeing's stock price down to by 12%. But it's bounced back already, even though there are 157 deaths associated with this. I think problem Boeing will be able to deal with.
Comair has told us that it will continue to use these planes. They are commonly used. They are increasingly used. What advice do you have for passengers who have a ticket and now see that this is a Boeing 737 MAX 8 flight that they would be flying?
Yeah, okay, well, we can give some guidance in this regard because the only airline that is operating them is Comair, but in fact Comair doesn't fly its own brand. It flies under Kulula or British Airways. Now, Kulula doesn't have the single 737 MAX that is in South Africa. It's in British Airways colours. It's relatively easy to to identify it as well, because it's got an unusual engine. The engines have got a chevron pattern on the, if you like, on the exhaust, whereas the earlier models, the 737, don't have that. So there's nothing to stop us being booked on the British Airways and then deciding whether they'd rather take another aircraft. Obviously, as time passes, we'll get more of these 738s delivered, but we hope within the next month or two, Boeing really would have solved the problem.
You're breaking up a little bit there, guys. So just to clarify, do passengers have a right to ask not to use a specific plane or not to board a specific plane?
They don't. Okay, well, but I'm quite convinced that if enough passengers put enough pressure on Comair, they would have to revise their current approach to making sure that the aircraft just flies normally. I think that there is a lot of pushback, judging from social media, against the use of this aircraft, until we know more about what's happened. So Comair may well consider its position. And either the Federal Aviation Administration of the United States or our local civil aviation regulator may in fact ground the aircraft.
All right, what a pity. We're losing that connection, but making it clear that there is concern about Boeing 737, the MAX 8, which is a relatively new Boeing. There are other Boeings, the 737-800s, the 400s, but this MAX 8, a big spotlight on that plane. And of course, we'll bring you the information. Still a lot of unanswered questions and maybe some information coming from the black box that has now been retrieved from that Ethiopian Airlines flight. Thank you for being with us on Full View. We take a short break. More to come.